Hello, everybody. I see there's some people in the room already. Manuel, Bernard, wow, loads of people have just joined into the room. Folks, you're all very welcome in. Dara Otuma is my name. I'm content manager with Code Institute. And today we're going to be talking with members of Maersk, who I'll introduce very soon. And as well as that, Jane Gormley, who is head of career services with Code Institute. I'm here first because, well, actually, we've just hit 1 o'clock. I'm here first to do a small bit of housekeeping. We'll be running live chat today, and I see somebody's already chatted in, which is great. Hello, Kamal, who says hello to everybody. I would like to... effectively, if you have any questions throughout the event, please send them in through live chat itself. We may not deal with every comment as they come in, and I see that Kira from Code Institute is there to answer any kind of questions that you may have that we don't actually tackle on the event itself. It should be a very enjoyable event. We're going to find out about, I suppose, life with Maersk, which is fantastic. And of course, we're going to talk about career change and software development around that. So first, I'm just going to very quickly look at what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about Maersk and technology, I suppose Maersk working with Code Institute and vice versa, working with Maersk itself. And then we're going to talk about technology in general. And then, of course, near the start, we're actually going to talk about career change, etc. as well. Very quick hello to everyone who said hi: Manuel, Bernard, Gotchaku, which I assume is maybe a form of Gosha, Roman, all of you, thank you very much for your texts. I'm going to stop with those now for a moment, and I'm going to welcome into the room our guests. First off, I'd like to welcome in Jane Gormley, who is Career Services Director with Code Institute. Jane, could we do a quick mic test? How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Can you hear me?
I can absolutely hear you.
Nice.
Your mic is working perfectly. I'd also like to welcome into the room Callum Bridgman-John, who is Global Head of Early Careers Recruitment in Technology with Maersk. That's a mouthful. You're very welcome into the room. Callum, how are you?
Hi, everybody. I'm well, thank you.
Excellent. And then as well as that, we have Senior Software Developer with Maersk, Stephanie Dimitrova. Stephanie, let's do a quick mic test. How are you today?
Hello, I'm doing good.
Excellent. Now, we may be joined very soon by Christina Ballon, but we're soon to find that out. But we shall carry on without. Listen, let's just jump straight into it. First off, regarding everyone who's here today, I know that there are many of our existing students and graduates who are attending, and you're all very welcome. I hope you are doing great on the course itself. But as well as that, I'm also aware that there are many people who are maybe considering career change coming into the room today to hear what's going on and to have maybe a look around as to the types of opportunities that are available in software development. So you're all very welcome. Now, for my talkers, Callum and Stephanie, as well as Jane, if you'll notice on the right-hand side of your screen, there's a button that says chat. So if you want to view any of the chats that are coming in, you can view them there. And I'd also like to welcome into the room Christina Ballon, who's another senior software developer with Maersk itself. Christina, how are you today?
Hello, thank you. I'm good. Good.
Excellent. Listen, I'm gonna jumble on. Okay. First off, I'm going to make all of our heads just a little bit smaller so we can actually see the text that's on the screen here in front of us. So a small bit of background about Code Institute for those of you who are joining us at an event for the first time. Code Institute was founded back in the year 2015. And effectively, what we're trying to do is teach people software development to assist them in changing career to software development itself. Now, it says in the first box there that we're a global education provider. What that means is because we're 100% online, our course is available for people all around the world. The most important thing to have is a good computer, which is, let's say, 4 to 8 gig RAM. But as well as that, Wi-Fi is an absolute must because our program is 100% online. We're the first university credit-rated online coding bootcamp in Europe. So effectively what that means is when we sat down and put our program together, we didn't want to just teach software development. We didn't want to just take a course, throw it together and say, hey, we can teach you now. We actually wanted to get that academic approval, and we did that. Therefore, our course is level 5 on the European qualification framework. We're industry-led in that when we decided on what we were going to teach as software developer or development educators, we actually spoke to industry to find out what's in demand. And it's why we teach things like JavaScript and Python, etc. We're career focused, so many people here today who are on the course, graduated from the course, or contemplating the course, you're all interested, or many of you are interested in career changing. So therefore, what we aim to do as a team is to give you the skills that are needed for that change, and then we give you the assistance of Jane Gormley's excellent career services team to actually help you make that transition into your first role as a software developer. And I must say as well that Jane's team is there for your, I suppose, duration as software developers. And then finally, our program, it does not run by exams. It's actually portfolio-led training. So when you're going through the course itself, you don't have to sit down and do exams. When you're doing the actual course, as our students and graduates will attest to, you actually get graded on the work that you do itself. I've done loads of talking, so Callum, I'm going to bring you in. Could you give everyone a small bit of background as to Maersk and what Maersk does, please?
Yeah, sure. So Maersk is an organization. We are an integrated container logistics company. As you can see on the left, we operate in 130 countries. At this moment in time, we currently are responsible for about 20% of the world's daily trade, and that is across rail, air, and sea freight. The main bulk of our work is in ocean logistics, but we are investing heavily into rail and air, and also kind of autonomous delivery services as well. We were founded, as you can see there, in 1904 by A.P. Moller. We were previously existed as a company called Svenborg. However, we integrated off the back of 1904. It said we are a shipping line and vessel operator. We have, I don't know the exact number of ships that we currently have, but we have a lot. And they're currently kind of all over the world, basically. But at the moment, we are on a digital revolution, really, to kind of revolutionize the logistics industry. We want to become a global integrator, basically meaning that we take responsibility for the full end-to-end of the logistics journey, right from the customer placing their order or shipping their products all the way through to actually delivering that to the customers off the back end of that as well. And we're doing that through a very heavy investment in our technology capabilities.
Can I tell you, Callum, as just a normal person, I live near the Docklands here in Dublin, okay? And I have seen your logo pretty much all of my life. And when I found out that, Jane's team were working with you guys, etc., and when I was lucky enough to go over and visit you, I have to tell you how excited I was, because for some reason I have this strange fascination with shipping containers. So it's actually an honor to be meeting you guys today, all of you from Maersk here today. It really is quite amazing. Okay, I'm going to move on, right? Let's talk about career change. And I suppose this is open to the floor, but I imagine I'm going to start out, I suppose, with Callum, because Callum, you have a lot of experience with recruitment, with bringing the right people in to the right teams, etc. And I can only assume that you've had the privilege of meeting a lot of career changers. Can I ask you, what is your opinion on somebody who actually sits down and makes that decision to change career into software development or anything?
For me as a recruiter, they are very highly sought after. Someone who has made that conscious decision at any point in their career to basically take the time to retrain, develop in their future, really to us shows a commitment to having a career in that field in the long term. Many of you maybe on this call who kind of maybe completed a university degree and then decided to retrain off the back of that. That kind of the university market as a whole is very saturated with a number of organizations and a number of competitors. But actually what we found is that the skills that people develop through work experience outside of university are crucial for us as well, in terms of kind of team working skills, problem solving, kind of that practical experience, and also kind of there may be people who've previously held kind of management positions who we can actually train and develop to become kind of future kind of senior engineers. And overall kind of that experience to us is just as important really to kind of that theoretical knowledge that they can develop from these courses. And really we find that kind of people who make those decisions also typically kind of perform well and outperform their university counterparts, but then also kind of really do stay in the organization longer. And also kind of there's more investment from us and from themselves to kind of support their development, because it shows really an appetite for them to learn and kind of progress in this career.
Yeah, it's one of the things, like for many career changers, certainly in my experience, Callum, for many career changers, like I'm going to bring up those two horrible words, imposter syndrome, okay? And they are horrible words, really, but it happens to everyone, no matter how well trained you are in something. But to me, it's kind of very prevalent among career changers. So Jane, I'm going to turn this to you now, okay? So how important is a positive mental attitude for somebody who actually makes that decision to change career into anything?
Yeah, of course. Well, I think a positive mental attitude is a very a very useful attribute or practice in daily life. But certainly when it comes to a change, I think just being a little mature about it, being clear on what your motivations are, and understanding it can take a little bit of time. There's steps. It doesn't happen just overnight because you've decided to. But it's something that's really character building. It was really nice hearing hearing Callum kind of identify those things, and it was really nicely articulated. I thought that seeing those stories on a CV where somebody is kind of creatively tackling doing something new, it sort of it really tells a nice story, and it really does suggest that somebody, just like Callum was saying, is really interested in learning. And I think obviously we're really focused here on tech, and tech is always changing, and the environment in successfully working within tech sort of assumes that you will want to always learn. So I guess it's a big thumbs up when you see that, and it's an industry that's really welcoming about it.
That's one of the things that I've mentioned this, and some of our students may remember me saying this when we did the Elevate event last year, Jane. It's one of the things I've spoken to employers before, and Callum, maybe you can back me up here, I'm not too sure. Likewise, Stephanie or Christina, if you want to jump in on it. But one thing that I was told once upon a time when I met with Capgemini, or Capgemini as I call them, they told us that they appreciated students from Code Institute because they made the decision to change career. But that showed to them that there was a willingness to always be learning. Do you find that, Callum, among, I suppose, people who have made that decision, change career?
Yes. So yeah, they said it's a very conscious decision they're making, and ultimately they do want to develop continuously. And I think having that attitude is important for us. As you said, kind of as an industry, technology is changing, but as a company as a whole, and I think Christina and Stephanie can vouch for this, we have gone through a rapid period of growth over the past 18 to 24 months, and we've really invested in kind of new technologies and integrating our capabilities, and that's actually resulted in a lot of our teams ourselves having to kind of train and continuously develop, particularly looking at the investment we're making in kind of cloud technology, AI, machine learning, the Internet of Things, digital models, digital twins. There's a lot of change going on, and we kind of, as a company, need people who can keep on top of those changes and also want to really invest in that learning and become those subject matter experts. Because we're investing heavily and we need them, really.
Right. I'm going to bring Stephanie in, and then Christina, you have to think about the answer to this while I ask Stephanie. Stephanie, I spoke to you briefly before the event, and while you're not technically a career changer, you did have more experience elsewhere before you opted for software development. Could you tell us about that? What was that experience?
Yeah, well, initially, before I actually went into pursue my education with software engineering, I was being trained to be a musician. So I graduated from a professional high school of music. I played the flute and the piano, and I actually tried to pursue a career in music. However, there was some kind of difficulties with my family not being so okay with music. So I really had to think about what do I actually want to pursue as a career? What would give me the same satisfaction and creativity and to be able to express myself, but in a different way? So I was really thinking into kind of going into software engineering, but my first, of course, initial was like game development because it was more also creativity, also a lot of design and a lot of thought process. But I really ended up in software engineering because the more I read about it, the more I understood what software engineering is all about. It really kind of resonated with me that I can express the same creativity as I did with my music. So it was really kind of scary at the beginning because I really didn't think those two subjects would connect, but they do actually connect a lot because through music, there's a lot of logic that you have to train, a lot of thought process that you have to put in how to express yourself through music, how you express a certain piece. So it's the same kind of analogy when you do coding and you produce code. You have to think about how well can you execute something in terms of the logic you're writing. Is it, good in terms of the grace you put into the logic? Because you can produce a lot of code, but not necessarily all the code that you produce can be well-written code. So you really have to think about also your creativity and also the quality of what you deliver. So I was really surprised through my education to understand and firsthand feel the connection between the both.
Wow, that's quite incredible. Like Jane mentioned to you before the event, folks, but we were in the room together for about 10 minutes before we went live, and you had mentioned your background being music before you went into software development, but it's quite remarkable. We have a lot of students on our program and graduates who have the same type of background. Like one guy in particular was a tenor, if I'm not mistaken, Jane. But again, I think that's kind of it's a great I won't say metaphor, that's the wrong term, but it's a great comparison, I suppose. You know, if you're writing a bad piece of music, and there's that similarity with writing that incorrect or bad line of code, or that line of code that doesn't give you the UX or the UI that you're actually looking for from it. It's absolutely fascinating, Christy or Stephanie.
Yeah, I mean, like there's a lot of subjects throughout my education in music that required you a lot to think about. There was the subject, I'm not sure if the English word for it is correct, but was called harmony. So you were given part of the music and you had to fill in the gaps, but you have to be careful about certain complexes that might arrive, certain like faults that you might introduce. So you really, when you think about it, it's the same way you would think about code. You really have to think about your surroundings and your environment and the code that you write in, whether you are kind of refactoring legacy code or introducing a new component. You really have to think about whether or not it's going to go in harmony with the rest of the components that are in the architecture that you're working on. So it really is, music is really kind of, you really can use music to connect the pieces when you are changing from that to software development.
Okay, I've got to ask you the very cheesy question, then I'm going to move over to Christina. Is there any particular music that you listen to while you're coding?
Oh, well, it's gonna sound so it's very far-fetched because I was training classical music, but now the music that I usually listen to while coding is more electronic music. So it's very far away.
Wow. Oh, okay, Christina, it's time to put you on the spot. Can I ask you, Christina, was it always your track to become a software developer? Like, did you start out in software development, or did you make a decision at some point to change career to it?
Well, for me, it was like also my education was in technology, and I was quite fascinated of technology and computer science from the beginning. But I can say I did do a career path still within technology. I've actually worked as a test automation engineer before, and also when I actually got to work with Maersk, I was hired as a test automation engineer. But then I found it for me, it's like I love challenges, and I love it's something that if I stay too much into something, I kind of consider it routine. So I need something more challenging, and I was looking for like backend development or front end development, and I just found it quite easy to change. Also having the help of my colleagues, of my manager, and also having the opportunities that I had in terms of resources. So I've actually, after I've been working a few months, actually not even that much, in Maersk as a test automation engineer, I switched to backend development, which again, it's still in technology, so it's not that it's not like music and technology. It's still in the area of technology, but I still consider it was, for me, it was I consider it as kind of like a career change for that. And even now, I'm actually a bit, even though I'm not that keen on front end myself, I thought about having it would be nice to actually get to know a bit of the technology and work with it. So currently, I'm also looking into front end development. So it was a bit of career change, still in technology, but just having the opportunity of doing so was great.
So you okay, just based on that comment, and I hope I'm not assuming too much, but you appear to have that always be learning mindset.
Yeah.
And just last question before I move on to the next slide. And Jane, this is where I'm going to ask you loads of questions coming up in a second. But Christina, how important, in your opinion, right? Okay, so for career changers and existing software developers, how important, in your opinion, is that always be learning mindset?
I think it's very important because looking at technology, it's everything like evolves, everything develops. Like there's new technologies everywhere, and just from like staying in one routine and one technology, for me it becomes a bit boring. I just like read about this new tools or new technology or new development, and it just like sparks my attention. So I think in order to also keep up with the trend nowadays, I think it's quite important to be open-minded about learning.
Okay, thank you for that. Jane, I'm going to bring you in now. Okay, so how to change careers, the title on this slide. But could you take us through, I suppose, even for those who are currently students with Code Institute, could you impart, as Director of Career Services here with Code Institute, could you impart or give us some advice on the steps that are required for a career change?
Of course, yeah. And look, I'll go through this as comprehensively as I can. But there's definitely a couple of takeaways for people. And, you know, I'm aware the audience are, some are well down the road of this decision and are in the process of acquiring skills. And some people are maybe still kind of hovering and trying to understand what's going to make them take the plunge. But firstly, I think anyone who is even thinking about this, you know, there's a reason why. So the first thing you need to do is identify those reasons. So what is it that you're currently doing that is not working? And you know, that usually you're going to have to come up with 2 or 3 things. You know, usually there's a practical reason, but there might also be a more emotional reason, or there could be a futuristic reason. It might be okay now, but you've already got the sensation this ain't going to work forever. And also bear in mind, you know, we've talked a lot about career changing, but you know, as someone who advises people regularly about jobs and recruits very regularly, your job must adapt to your life. Your life changes. You know, it's important to reassess criteria, you know, of every 5 years, something like that. But if you've decided that change has to happen, the next step is then to do your research on what you're changing to. So having identified what the problems are, that should lead you very quickly to what it is that you need to have. And I think very firstly, regardless of the practical reasons, this has to be something that you enjoy. You have to try this out, do some research. And this is the bit on the right here that maybe I'll talk about, maybe kind of getting to know people in the industry, but, you know, do some online coding tests if this is a brand new territory for you. Like we obviously have one in the 5-day coding challenge, so that's available here easily. But there are, you know, resources online where you can start understanding this a bit more. And your response to it is something that's going to tell you a lot. And then look, we wrote trust your gut here. You know, there are emotions involved here, which it's easier to trust your gut if you've kind of you know, got a clear pros and cons list of what you want to change and what is available. And then it's time to go and talk to people in the industry. So like today is obviously a step in doing that. You got to step away from the computer sometimes though. You need to go and maybe go to a meetup, go to some sort of event that will tell you something about the industry. And remember that this is really doable. You know, a change is just a series of steps, same as a line is a series of dots. There are stages involved in this, so I would definitely take a mature and realistic approach to it. Make sure you're in, you know, surrounds that you can trust, that you've assigned a timeline, and that you feel comfortable that you've identified what you're looking for, you've done your research, your instincts are working, and then you have a realistic timeline, because you don't want to overwhelm yourself either, and you want to get this right and be fair to yourself and enjoy the process. But you know, that's the best way to go about it.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Jane. One thing I will stress, though, in my experience from changing career myself, but not only that, from the tons of graduates that I've spoken to through our course, motivation is key, folks. Like, know what your motivation is. Stay motivated. Stay on track. Always think about that primary motivation when you feel you're coming off track. I'll stop with my philosophy talk now in a second. Okay, I'm going to move on to a few questions now, folks. There have been loads of questions coming in, which is amazing. Let's get to what I see top of my list, which is from Joy. Is the session being recorded to be available for viewing later this week? I love topics and insights. Unfortunately, I have training, so I have to go back in 8 minutes. Joy, yes, it should be available. Just get in touch with us maybe tomorrow after the event itself. Carsten, okay, so this is to the floor. Actually, I'm going to choose Callum and Jane for this, okay? As a newbie in coding at the age of 44, how realistic is it to get a job in tech? Jane, we'll start with you. And Callum, if you agree or disagree, just nod or wave.
So hi, Carsten, was it? Carsten. Hi, Carsten. So firstly, like my advice that I just said there in terms of sort of planning, I would advise everyone considering it to go through that. In terms of sort of ageism and restarting, it really genuinely, it's not something that I see as being any sort of an issue. At different points in your life, your job needs to do different things. So I would say just make sure that the stage that you're at is something which can accommodate a change, because sometimes there can be implications in terms of your availability and kind of starting salaries and those sorts of practical requirements. But in terms of anything else, no, I don't see it as a challenge, and I definitely see that within our own community there's a really, really wide variety of people's kind of starting points in terms of their previous experience. So I would be really comfortable with that. But again, I would advise anyone, regardless of what age you told me, is that to make sure that on a practical basis you've accommodated for a change, and that you have your ducks in a row before you get started, and don't try and put huge pressure on yourself to do this unreasonably quickly. This needs to be something that's done with ample preparation, and the timeline doesn't have to be really long. People are doing this within 8 months to a year on a really average basis, so it's very, very doable.
Callum, as head of early careers recruitment within technology itself, would you agree with that, or would you like to add to that in any way?
No, I would agree. The only thing to really echo, as Jane said, is it's more the practical element of it, and just making sure that is said if you join after a career change, you will be joining at an entry-level role, which then typically comes with the entry-level salary. So it's just making sure that obviously you're aware of that, and the lifestyle you have, and obviously any commitments you have can be supported by that. That's the only advice. But in terms of actually being able to apply and interviewing and all those kinds of things, there is no difference. It's just more the practical side of it than anything else.
Okay. Just so now, Vinod or Vino, I'm not sure how to pronounce that name, so my apologies in advance, asked a similar question. So I hope that response has been good for you. He's working as an information analyst with NHS and has a computer science background. He's 48, same type of question. Okay, so hopefully that answered it for you. Sadie Akande says, good day. It's a pleasure to join you guys. You're most welcome to be here. And then, look, we've had loads of questions, and I will come back to some of those. I'm seeing a massive list in front of me, and hopefully Kira, I think, is answering a lot of those as well. So I will get back to those. Okay, let's start talking about Maersk. And this wonderful image here is of Captain Peter. For those of you, now, I'll be honest, I had never heard of Captain Peter until the first time I met you guys in Maersk. I understand now just how important Captain Peter is. But not only that, I believe I've seen the most amazing ad pop up regarding Maersk recently, where there was kind of a mention or I suppose a pointer towards your amazing technology as well. Callum, tell us, what is, and just for everybody, you see up top of the screen, it says Maersk and technology. Here's where we're going to start talking about Maersk and technology. Callum, what is Captain Peter?
Cool.
Who is Captain Peter?
My intense research has going to pay off here. So cool. So for a bit of context, so I joined Maersk about 18 months ago, and I had probably the same view as everyone else does of shipping and logistics, which is I had a view of someone stood in a port with a clipboard ticking off shipping containers as they arrive. What Captain Peter is designed to do, and does, I guess, is to reduce that. So we launched it in 2017. And basically, it is a tracking app for shipping containers. But within that, you can also view the container's temperature. So if you have perishable goods in there, you can control the temperature, the humidity in the containers, the CO2 levels, and basically customers receive notifications if there's anything that needs to be addressed in their shipping containers. But as well as that, it gives you kind of real-time location of where the container is, and if there's going to be delays to the journey, if it's on schedule, anything like that, it's there, rather than kind of the traditional way, which was very much you put your container on a ship at point X and then you hope that it arrives at point Y in a timely manner. This was designed to really remove that the uncertainty around where the container is. It helps to improve our customers' journey. It obviously helps their knock-on impact to their customers. Say, for example, we're shipping let's say 100 cars for Volkswagen, and Volkswagen want to know where their cars are. That's there. And then also if there are cars that they've already bought for the customers, they can obviously then update the customers on where their products are at that time. So that's what that app was developed. As I said, it was designed in 2017. It's continuously being developed and worked on. It now tracks kind of CO2 levels. I think as well you can see kind of your environmental impact of what you're shipping, so that you have a more accurate way of kind of offsetting what you're putting into the environment. And overall, it really just helps improve the customer experience. You can look at kind of your finances, bills, invoice payments, everything there is all contained within one app rather than kind of using the multiple systems that have been done in the past. So overall, it's basically designed to simplify the customer's journey.
Okay, can I ask you, this may be putting you on the spot, or perhaps you said it at the start, and if I missed it, I do apologize, right? So just to give an idea of scale of this, have you an idea as to how many, I suppose, containers you guys ship every year?
I looked this up just while we were talking. So for context, we currently have 708 vessels under our fleet in terms of actual day-to-day shipping. So we have capability to pass. I wouldn't even know where to start to work that out.
Okay.
But if you imagine 20% of the things that you own in your house probably came from a Maersk container. So we work, for people who will know, we work with some very famous brands, really. So we're kind of the main partner for ASOS's delivery service. We work with the likes of Samsung, Volkswagen, Maersk. We don't work with Maersk, we are Maersk. Puma, Adidas, Nike. We work with quite a number of different customers, but we work across kind of a range of different industries as well. But yeah, we have 708 ships, but I do not know how much we do.
That's okay. And to be honest with you, it's probably sensitive information, so I'm kind of glad you didn't answer it. Okay, so Christina, I'm going to put you on the spot now, okay? Now, I know, and guys, we're going to get to your other technologies in a few moments, because I know like even running the day-to-day, it doesn't just involve Captain Peter. But Christina, I'm going to assume that you work on Captain Peter in some way. What's it like?
Well, I don't work precisely on Captain Peter, but I do work on presenting like the offers if you want to ship something with Maersk. It's great. I would say I find the work, the teamwork, my colleagues, the involvement of everybody. It's quite amazing. The technologies that we use and the opportunity of working on different technologies. The learning part. The learning opportunities that we are actually given, it's quite good, I would say. I'm quite happy.
Okay. So one thing, myself and Jane have done, Jane, I'm going to say hundreds of webinars together. Okay, and in every webinar we discuss the fact that technology is no longer just Google. It's no longer just Twitter. It's no longer whatever. It's no longer just Amazon. Now, obviously, they're very tech-orientated companies, but it's now every company in the world. And I think Maersk is testament to that. But I suppose, Jane, does this kind of highlight, or should it highlight, just how broad the demand for tech as such is, or people with those skills is?
Yeah, of course. And you know, it's something that we talk about all the time, actually. And with a lot of the current students who are here, will have heard myself and other members of the team saying this. Like, it's really important to educate yourself on an industry. And there's, you know, the digital transformation has obviously been really kind of topical and in all of our faces over the last 20 years. And a couple of very high profile kind of software product or maybe social media companies have sort of, in some ways, kind of dominated some of that transformation, because, you know, it's been a whole new revolution of how we use the digital space. But I mean, you know, what we see within the industry is that all companies massively incorporate technology, and all of these R&D hubs and research and development centers for, you know, what your end product might be. It's, you know, the reliance on tech to utilize that and to expand that. This is such a lovely conversation to illustrate it. So, you know, a company's end product, it is not the only thing to look at when you're trying to understand where these really great career paths exist. You know, you got to open your eyes and come to events like this and realize that, I mean, Maersk is one of the biggest employers in Europe. And here we are explaining one of the gorgeous internal kind of products that's being built. But, you know, easily one could assume logistics, oh, they mightn't want to talk to me, but of course they do. And, you know, when you spend a couple of minutes thinking about it, it's obvious, but we're all still learning about that. I think, particularly when people are new to the industry, we tend to make assumptions of where we might end up working. So that's what I guess from our side, and certainly from our careers team, we want to make sure that, especially when it comes to career changers who may have really valuable previous backgrounds, they're not tearing this up and starting from scratch. You can carry that experience through. So be smart about the sort of research that you're doing.
It's like, as Callum mentioned earlier on, I suppose, if you have those other softer skills, that's a term I'm not really cool with, but like management, communication, all that type of stuff as well. Stephanie, it's your turn. So Christina kind of pointed to, working on other technologies within Maersk. Could you give us, Stephanie or Callum, but I'll start off with Stephanie, could you give us an idea as to kind of the other technologies around Maersk that would be separate, let's say, to Captain Peter?
Yeah, I mean, the kind of what I work in is part of the Department of Technology Service Engineering, formerly known as Cloud Engineering. So what we do is that we provide infrastructure to the other developers in Maersk to help them have their development cycle be more easy, more easygoing. So what we do is we are trying to provide a way for other developers to know the quality that they deliver, the productivity that they do in terms of their development cycle, and to understand whether or not their product is scoring high or low, depending on the new features they deliver into their platform. So we're not directly connected to Captain Peter, but we are indirectly helping the developers who are developing Captain Peter. So we're providing them a platform to understand how to improve themselves in their development cycle.
Okay. The word cycle is really nice there, actually, and it suits perfectly. It means so much more. It's kind of you're joining dots within Maersk itself. Once again, using technology to do that. I'm just going to very quickly look at this, the chats here. Let me see. I have a question, please, Bino. Okay, I've got to that.
So very quick, while you're looking at that then, so I've done a quick Google because I didn't know the information. Across our ships, we can carry 4.1 million shipping containers.
Oh.
So 700 ships can carry 4.1 million 20-foot containers. So that's the context for how big our capabilities are. And on the average say on average, a ship is at sea for 3 to 4 months. You're looking at around 20 million containers a year.
So one would guess that you'd need pretty reliable, good software to manage something like that. Which is maybe better than the pen and paper that we all would have been ticking boxes with many years ago. Wow, that's quite the figure. And those containers are big. As I said, living near the docks, I get to see these daily. Driving by them all the time. If any of our guests or any of our viewers are living in and around Dublin Port, that's where I am, and you see them all the time down there, which is absolutely amazing. Okay, let's move on, and I will get to some of these questions. There's mention of ChatGPT and other things like that I'll get to a little bit later on. Okay, and please keep your questions coming in. And once again, thank you, Ciara, for all that. And Jade says Dara is delighted with that statistic. Yes, I am actually, Jade. It was very impressive, I have to say. Let me see. Actually, here's one question before we move on about, I suppose, the relationship between Maersk and Code Institute. How important can having a technological background be for employers to hire me? Now, that's slightly a how long is like it's quite an open-ended question. So I suppose it'd be advantageous in some way.
Well, yeah, if you're getting hired into a tech role, like you need to have some sort of evidence that you've begun this journey, and obviously that's obviously very dependent on the type of role that you're applying for. But in terms of it being a long-term background, obviously that's something that we can definitely help with, because training and getting started and career changing is something that we're all kind of talking about. But I don't think people joining our program, there isn't an expectation that you have to have coded before. Maybe that's what they meant.
Yeah, and I just see Ciara has answered that, so my apologies. Jorge, if you want to become a software developer, you don't need a technological background as such. no harm if you understand things. That's fine if you already understand HTML and stuff like that. Do you offer on-the-job training? So Shweta, we're going to get to that in a moment. Okay, Callum and Jane, I suppose, could you tell us a little bit more about how Code Institute and Maersk are cooperating around, I suppose, business in general?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to go first, Jane, or should I?
Yeah, sure. Sure. So Code Institute and Maersk, like this year, beginning of this year, really, I suppose, would have been a more formal kickoff to how we're supporting Maersk in their growth, and obviously in their technical skills and in the kind of junior tech hires. So, Maersk have joined us for an event earlier in the year, and our careers team would work with Callum's team. There's obviously, Callum has a number of recruiters working on his team over in the UK and in different European locations. And what we do actively together is to try and keep on top of what sort of roles they're looking for, geographically, what kind of locations, timing of the year, and plan with them in advance of that, and then profile Maersk as a technical employer, and obviously then on our student side, we're preparing everybody for technical careers, and this is one of the signposted destination sites that we're working together on. So I guess on Maersk side, obviously they take care of the recruitment piece as such, and our job is to make sure that we've opened these relationships between the two sides, and then as our graduates are moving through the program, they're able to learn a lot about Maersk, they're able to attend various different events, and then we're able to signpost them onto the recruitment roles as and when they become available. And then I think it's probably over to Callum to explain what happens then.
Yeah, sure. So for context, everyone here, I joined Maersk 18 months ago to basically create the early talent function, which works on recruiting entry-level roles. And part of that was building relationships with suppliers like Code Institute, who, as Jane said, we work very closely with to kind of promote our opportunities and also speak to students about opportunities in technology and within Maersk. As a company, as I mentioned before, we have grown significantly over the past, I'd say 2 to 3 years. Like, we've really accelerated our development within our technology capabilities, and also invested quite heavily in that new technology that we obviously spoke about. So for us, kind of, and this probably will answer a couple of questions that maybe have come in, working with people, looking at career changes, these entry-level roles, helping to develop people is crucial for us to continue to grow and be stable. And we really do value kind of people who come into the organization with kind of those different perspectives that they've maybe gained from other employment or other degree backgrounds that they can bring to this role and look at things from kind of different perspectives, not just maybe the technical perspective. I think someone on this call mentioned having like 20 years of experience in marine industry. It's like, well, if you've got experience in the industry and like, what the end result looks like, you can then come in and say, okay, well, when I was doing X, it would have been great if this could have done that while I was doing it. And also, people have experience in other industries of using different systems and different softwares, and taking those learnings and those developments that we can then bring into our own softwares helps us to continue to develop kind of our materials as well. And ultimately, kind of that's why we value kind of this partnership that we do have with Code Institute, and it's something that we do want to kind of continue to develop as well.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Callum. And just to kind of echo what you said there, do you remember I mentioned Capgemini or Capgemini? I pronounce it incorrectly, by the way, folks. So it's like Peugeot. I say Peugeot.
We obviously all do then, do we?
Well, no, one of us does. But I also say Peugeot instead of Peugeot. So yes, my apologies for that. But when I spoke to the good people in Capgemini before, they kind of indicated to me, look, and I completely understand this, software developers are problem solvers, okay? And if you look at a company like Capgemini, for example, they create problem-solving software for other businesses, regardless of what industry they're in as such. It's there to solve the problems itself. So I'd look at somebody, for example, who has any logistical background as being really good at knowing knowledge as to the logistics behind a company like Maersk or somewhere like that. That can be advantageous. But likewise, like if you need, and this is in general, if you join a management company, having management background on top of your software development skills, you understand the problems. So therefore, you should be able to put together, well, How do I fix that problem? How do I fix that problem with technology, etc.? Okay, I'm going to move on from here, and this is where we're going to start talking about life as a developer and life as a developer within Maersk. I'm going to make our heads a little bit smaller again. Okay, so Maersk, we had this great question that came in just a moment ago. Back to chat. Do you offer on-the-job training? Okay, so Callum, let's go to you and let's talk about kind of career paths within Maersk itself. Is there such a thing?
Yes. So the bulk of the hiring that we're doing at the moment is particularly around kind of graduate software engineers, so entry-level engineering roles, in a variety of kind of different platforms that we work in. Obviously, Stephanie mentioned she's working in technology services engineering, which is kind of integral to a lot of the development the wider teams do, but we do have other opportunities in different platforms that may be on kind of more customer-facing software or more internal-facing software. So there is a huge variety of work that we have. So at the moment, we do offer on-the-job training. So when you come in, you probably expect your kind of first 6 to 9 months to really be kind of closely mentored and supported, and you'll be given kind of not lighter tasks, but kind of not as intense. You won't necessarily be running projects by yourself. You'll kind of be supported by someone training, developing, and that will be kind of supported by your manager and the wider team. As you kind of progress beyond that, you would start taking on kind of bigger pieces of work and maybe starting to run things a bit more by yourself, with obviously still some light touch points with your manager. And then beyond kind of 18 months or so, we'd kind of expect you to be a fully trained developer. Beyond that, we do obviously have kind of promotion cycles, and we do have kind of, I think it's associate engineers, senior engineers, but we also, I think Jane, you and I discussed when we met this before, we have kind of two routes within our technology families. One is to go into kind of a management position, so kind of an engineering manager and manage a team of kind of junior staff beneath you, or not beneath you, who report into you, or alternatively progress more down kind of the technical route and become really a subject matter expert in that field. And again, this is potentially where kind of that previous experience comes into play. As I said, if you've got management experience, you may want to continue obviously being a manager and kind of developing younger talent, or you may come in and actually want to become kind of the expert in one particular area. So really kind of that would be your decision to join, or when you kind of got to that point. And obviously the company would fully support kind of the route that you went down, and we would help support training and developing you to achieve that, really.
Okay, Anders, Anders, I'll get to yours very soon, actually, and the next slide will cover your question. We'll get to that. The suspense. Patrick asks, what tech stack do they use at Maersk, or what languages, etc.?
I'm going to give that to Stephanie and Christina.
Stephanie?
Sure. Well, in technology service engineering, the broad language that is being used is Java, but we do have a lot of projects that are using .NET and Golang. So we do have a lot of diversity in terms of the languages and the tech stack that we use. A lot of our deployments are done with Kubernetes, and it really depends on your expertise, but and what you're actually looking for. But a lot of there's a lot of variety that you can get exposed to, and even though you might not know a certain language or a certain stack, you get the chance to learn while you work on it. So that's the cool part of it. When I joined Maersk and I joined the product that I'm currently developing with my team, I was just fluent in .NET, and on the job, I actually had to learn a little bit of Golang, which was quite fun. And you really have kind of the ability and the freedom and the platform given to take your time and understand the concepts of the different language and actually learn how to develop on it. So was quite a fun challenge for me.
So it would be kind of broad,
Yes.
I suppose, a variety of languages as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I'm going to ask the same question to you, Christina, because now my apologies, this is my ignorance. Christina and Stephanie, are you guys in the same department or different departments?
No.
Okay, so Christine, what about yourself? Is it broad for your section as well, or?
Yeah, exactly. I'll second what Stephanie said. We're also mainly working on the backend on Java, but I have teams that I'm working with that are actually developing in Python. Also in terms of infrastructure, like we build infrastructure in Terraform. For front end, we're using React, Next.js. So it's quite broad, and as Stephanie mentioned, it depends on the department, on the team. But there's also this opportunity of if you want to try something new, you also have the resources to actually learn about the technology that you want. You also have colleagues that have probably worked with that before, and you can share their experience. It's quite broad.
That's fantastic, and it's nice to know that the resources are available as well. But like I have to say, I'm not surprised in a company like your own. I'm not at all surprised by that. Okay, let's move on. Anders, suspense must be killing you, so we're going to move on to your question now. Okay. All right. Sorry. Before we get sorry, Anders, we'll get to your question in a moment. Callum, could you give us an idea as to the interview process? Now, I know you kind of answered this last time around in terms of you gave us kind of a timeline, but could you, I suppose, in one fell swoop, go through this slide with me? What's the interview process like for anyone who does happen to get their foot in the door of Maersk? What does 1 month look like, 1 year, and then training and further education, which you mentioned already?
Yeah, sure. So application process is a CV upload. There'll be a first stage interview with a senior colleague within the team that you are interviewing for. So within our roles, we recruit for a number of different teams and a number of different departments. So that's why if you do happen to apply for one of the roles that we have advertised, it may not necessarily be a full comprehensive list of kind of responsibilities and tasks. So what will happen is that there'll be a brief kind of conversation with a recruiter in my team, really, to just go through the role that you're interviewing for, make sure that everyone's still aligned, and obviously it's something that you're interested in. If it's something that's suitable for you, you'd then be invited to a first stage virtual interview with a senior colleague in the team. Then if off the back of that, you'd be invited to a second stage interview with the hiring manager. Depending on availability and obviously locations and stuff, we are conducting as many of those kind of face-to-face in the UK in our Maidenhead office, but in kind of Denmark, it's in our Copenhagen offices, and we have offices in various countries. But that's obviously availability and location dependent. And then off the back of that, if you are successful in those 2 rounds of interviews, you would ultimately be made an offer to kind of join us, and we'd go through the paperwork there. Month 1 in Maersk, you would come in, meet the wider team, have introductions, go through kind of onboarding processes, have all of your inductions, set kind of your objectives and goals with your manager, have a brief chat about kind of your experiences, what maybe you want to get exposure to, and then you'd be put onto kind of a project that they're working on with the support of either your manager or kind of a senior member of the team. Year 1 in Maersk is very heavily around kind of training and development and kind of making sure that we're building your capabilities. As I said, when you start, there'll be very close support with kind of your mentor or your manager, but obviously as you progress in your capabilities, that support will still be available, but it might become kind of more high level, not necessarily kind of as in depth, and you'd be able to take on kind of more meaningful, more like bigger projects and bigger pieces of work. But what I always say to people, and always that that's driven by your own development. We will always give you as much work as you can achieve. So if you come in with the attitude of learning and wanting to develop, you will be given more work. So that's kind of how that will work, and it'll be driven by kind of your own engagement, your own capabilities, and kind of the speed at which you can develop. In terms of training and stuff, as I said, you'll get the on-the-job training from your manager, but then teams will run their own broader training if there's kind of new software that we're introducing, new languages that we're introducing. What we're trying to launch as part of the graduate cohort is really kind of graduate training where we have subject experts in the company come and talk for an hour, maybe 2 hours about something that maybe they're working on or a particular language they're using, so that you get a broader understanding of the wider languages, not necessarily the one that you are just using in your day-to-day. But they are courses. We have an internal learning software which has a ridiculous amount of courses available on it, really, that you can take time to complete, and then ultimately kind of develop there from both kind of softer skills, but then also from technical skills as well.
Wow, and once again, not surprised, especially regarding the kind of the self-development that you mentioned there as well, Callum. Like I say this in the most respectful way in the world. Big companies like your own, it's amazing to see that you're able to actually invest in self-development of your staff, give them skills. Obviously, that's good for your company, but it's also good for the person who works with you. Okay, Christina and Stephanie. All right, we got a really nice question in, right? And I'm going to ask both of you the answer to this, and then we'll talk about what it's actually like to work with Maersk, what life is like with Maersk, okay? So the question is from Derek, and Derek says, what one key thing do you enjoy about this environment? So we'll start with Christina, please.
Yes. Well, as I mentioned before, for me, it's the career opportunities actually that I can choose from. I simply love it that we can focus on different parts. As Callum mentioned, if you want to change, like to be more management oriented, you can actually do so. So for me, one key is the learning and career path opportunities that I'm getting. And well, I know it was one key, but also I would actually like to mention the opportunity to be heard in your, like, regarding your ideas. For example, we have like a hackathon in Maersk, and if for example, if I have an idea that will bring value to the customer, value to the business itself, I don't know, maybe an application that does such and such, we actually have a hackathon where you can present it and your idea can actually become a real project, regardless if you're, it doesn't matter like where you stand in terms of if you're a manager, if you're just a developer, and that's just but
that's amazing.
Yeah, so I think these two keys I can say.
Okay, yeah, you cheated, but that's okay. Yeah. Stephanie, same question. What kind of one key thing do you enjoy most?
Well, for me, I would definitely choose the self-growth. For me, it's super important as a developer to always be able to have the space and time to develop your skills and sharpen them. As we know, technology is always rapidly evolving. You cannot ever be as good as yesterday because there's always something new. There's always something that you need to be on top of. And especially when you're working with Maersk and there's so much technology that you've been exposed to, you need that time to kind of focus on your self-growth and sharpening your skills in areas that you might be really interested in. So for me, that is really important, especially when I was trying to go out and find myself a job as a software engineer, is that value of the company if they actually really emphasize on giving you that time as an engineer to really polish yourself. And when I joined Maersk, I was actually really pleasantly surprised because I really didn't have the same experience in my previous positions. So it really allows you to kind of embrace yourself as a developer and really focus on the things that you really want to be better at and good at and give you that time for that. So that to me is one of the things that I really enjoy a lot. And as Christina cheated, I'll cheat as well. For me, it's also the culture. The culture that I've experienced working in Maersk was something that I've never really experienced before. There's so much when you speak Maersk, the name, it brings so much volume. So at first when I joined, I was very kind of nervous because it's something, you've always heard about, you've always seen the vessel. So you would expect a very kind of strict atmosphere. But as soon as I joined the department I work in, formerly known as cloud engineering, it was super welcoming, super warm. Even though we're so many different teams spread apart within technology service engineering, it all feels like one team. Sometimes when we sit at lunch, we just all talk and all discuss, and it's super refreshing. It's kind of a fresh of breath air to be part of this culture. It's something that really speaks volume to me as well.
Fantastic. Now, between Christina's answer and Stephanie's answer, we can say that we've spoken about both work life and culture, as you'll see on the slide deck there in front of you. So thanks for that, folks. Your cheating was very helpful. Callum, I'm going to bring you in because now I'm on to Anders' question here. Anders, does Maersk offer positions remote/home office? Anders, sorry it took me so long to get to that, but as you can see, this is the natural order of things in terms of this particular webinar itself. So hybrid work from home, etc. You're sitting in what looks like a lovely home office, Callum. Could you tell us? And I've met you in your own office as well, which is absolutely amazing. I've had the pleasure of going out to Maidenhead and seeing its lovely office space, etc. Mm-hmm. Particularly love the massive ships. Replicas that you have then in the foyer. But could you tell us what type of policies do you guys run in Maersk?
Yeah, so we run hybrid working. So as you mentioned, I'm based in the UK. I work remotely. In Denmark, it's similar situation, but I will concede that the office in Copenhagen, if anyone is based there, you would want to be in that office every day. It is incredible. Everyone is there. Not that our Maidenhead office isn't, let me just caveat that, but the Copenhagen one is great. So it really varies location to location. So we do work hybrid. Some teams are in 1 or 2 days a week. Some are in 1 or 2 days every other week. It really varies on the work and also the individuals. Some individuals prefer coming to an office, and we obviously support that fully. Some people don't, and obviously we do support that as well. It would be a conversation with your manager and at your manager's discretion based on team needs. Obviously, when you do start out, we would highly recommend trying to come in fairly regularly just to meet with the wider team, to integrate yourself, to network, to build those relationships. And then as you progress in your role, obviously then kind of look at the more hybrid working, but it is something we can support from day one.
Okay, now I've gone slightly over time, so my apologies, but I do want to talk about, and we'll call it a wrap after this, and maybe I'll just rush through some of the other questions as well. And apologies, hopefully Ciara's answered many of your questions, and thank you for all the comments that have come in through the event, particularly that one from Jade regarding me being delighted with the 4-point-something million containers. But CSR, corporate social responsibility, Callum, I know this is very important at Maersk. Could you tell us, okay, so if you work with Maersk, we've spoken about culture, work life, but a big part of that is what the company does for and with, I suppose, the staff, the people that work for it. So could you tell us, I suppose, your take on CSR within Maersk itself?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, CSR is very important to us. We as a company do very much believe in giving back to kind of the communities that we work with. I believe it's 2 volunteering days a year that we can use to work really with anyone that we want to. So if there's kind of causes that are close to your heart or are close to you as an individual, you can use those volunteering days with them. We do also have more kind of not structured, but we have like a network of kind of charities that we work with, and they'll post kind of volunteering opportunities. It may be kind of painting children's playgrounds, clearing up local areas, whatever that might be. We can support that as well. And then from kind of the early talent perspective, like we go in and we meet with schools, we run kind of classroom sessions for them. We really kind of engage with the local communities to kind of support careers in technology and kind of helping to develop within Maersk. But overall, yeah, there's a number of different kind of CSR opportunities available.
Sorry, I was on mute, so I'm just back. Okay, listen, thank you for that. Okay, I'm going to go through just a few more of the questions, then we'll let everyone go. And I really want to thank everyone for coming today. Osama, Matthew, Boris, you're very welcome for joining the call, and thank you for coming along. Okay, now we may deal with this offline, but Chris says, can you please, I don't want to put anyone on the spot here, so it's completely up to yourselves for the moment. Can you please share LinkedIn accounts, etc.? Folks, if you search for our attendees online, you should be able, or within LinkedIn, you should be able to connect to them through that. The names, etc., are within the invite, but that's up to individuals to go through. I don't see anyone with difficulty here. If somebody asks you to connect on LinkedIn, we're all good?
No, not for me.
I'm good at that.
We're all good. So if you hop into LinkedIn, again, names of our panelists are within the email that would have been sent to you, Chris. And that actually request came in from a few people. Pallavi on Goel. I'm really sorry if I'm saying names incorrectly. I'm Master of Economics, but without maths. Now I want to change my field, like a programmer or tester in IT. That is possible. If yes, what the way? Briefly, Jane.
Oh, sorry, I thought I was on mute there. Sorry, what was that question?
No problem.
The Master of Economics without math, was it?
But without math.
No, okay. Oh, okay. So a common misconception is that you've got to be a genius at maths in order to become a software engineer. So, great question, Pavli. And it's it's not something that we see as being any sort of an issue at all. Like, there are similarities in terms of kind of logic and progression of logic, but it's not a requirement that you would be able to demonstrate amazing mathematics skills in order to do this. So that's not something you need to worry about.
Okay, listen, folks, I see I've gone way over time, and thank you to all of you for staying on a little longer than you should have. To everyone who tended to watch this today, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate that you came along. If you want to get in touch with us, look, respond to the email that you would have received during the week. I'm sure you'll get a follow-up email. I know some people asked about a recording of this event. It can be available. Just get in touch and let us know that you're looking for it. Once again, reply to the email that you would have received during the week. I would like to thank Jane Gormley, as always, for joining us as Career Service Director with Code Institute. Jane, it's always a pleasure. Callum, Christina, and Stephanie, I nearly said so, Stephanie. Thanks to all of you for giving us your time today. I really do appreciate it. And I know that you guys are going to be on holidays tomorrow. So best of luck and enjoy your day off. And once again, to everyone who joined us, and of course to Ciara McGlynn, who has been dealing with the live chat today. To all of you, thank you so much. And we'll see you all again soon. All the best, folks. Bye.
Thanks.